The sea has always held secrets, and tonight is no different. On the rocky shores of Blue Haven, under a sky heavy with the promise of rain, a sleek kayak cuts through the water like a blade. Marissa Quinn, a marine biologist chasing a dream that feels increasingly fragile, pushes forward against the current. The seals she studies are somewhere nearby, their plaintive calls blending with the crash of waves. She doesn't hear the shout until it's too late. Hey, watch out! A blur of motion, the snap of fiberglass. Marissa's kayak collides with a surfboard, sending her sprawling into the icy water. She resurfaces with a gasp, sputtering, to find herself face to face with the surfer she'd unknowingly interrupted. His eyes, sharp, ocean blue and furious, narrow at her. "What the hell?" he demands, clutching the remnants of his board. "Do you even know what you're doing out here?" Marissa's teeth chatter as she snaps back. "I'm conducting research. Not that it's any of your business." "Well, your research just wrecked my board," he retorts. His tone is biting, but there's something about his expression, an edge of surprise, even amusement, that makes her pause. "Look," she says, climbing awkwardly back into her kayak. "I didn't mean to. If you'll excuse me, I have work to do." "Sure," he says, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Try not to sink anyone else while you're at it." Marissa paddles away, her cheeks burning. She can still feel his eyes on her as she disappears around a jagged outcrop of rocks. Annoyed as she is, she knows she'll see him again. Blue Haven is a small town, and fate, she's certain, is already weaving its tangled web. Later that evening, Marissa learns his name, Ryan Callahan. He's a local, born and raised in Blue Haven, known for his surf shack on the beach and his reputation as a charming, carefree spirit. She overhears the bartender at the Driftwood pub describe him as a guy with no roots, just waves to chase. It only strengthens her resolve to avoid him. The last thing she needs is a distraction. But fate doesn't ask permission. The very next day, Marissa receives troubling news. A powerful storm has damaged the marine reserve, scattering debris and harming the fragile ecosystem she's working to protect. The town is planning a fundraiser to support the cleanup efforts, and Marissa is asked to help organize it. To her dismay, Ryan is also on the committee. From the moment they're introduced, officially this time, their dynamic is electric. Ryan smirks when he sees her, clearly enjoying the twist of fate. "Guess we'll be seeing a lot more of each other," he says, leaning casually against the doorway of the meeting hall. Marissa straightens her shoulders, refusing to let him get under her skin. "We'll see," she replies, her tone crisp. As the meeting unfolds, it becomes clear that they're polar opposites. Marissa wants to plan every detail meticulously, while Ryan advocates for a more laid-back, go-with-the-flow approach. The tension between them simmers, drawing curious glances from the other committee members. Yet, beneath the friction, there's a spark neither of them can ignore. Their first real clash comes over the venue for the fundraiser. Marissa argues for the town's community center, a practical and affordable option. Ryan counters with the idea of hosting it on the beach, under a canopy of string lights. "It's more memorable," he insists. "People connect with the ocean when they're near it." Marissa rolls her eyes. "This isn't about making memories. It's about raising money. And you think people will donate if they're stuck in a boring hall?" Ryan shoots back, his voice tinged with exasperation. Their argument is interrupted by Chloe, Ryan's best friend and a fellow surfer. "Okay, lovebirds, take it down a notch," she says, her tone teasing. "We're here to save the seals, not kill each other." The remark leaves Marissa flustered, but Ryan just grins. "Lovebirds," he repeats, his gaze flicking to Marissa. Imagine that. For all their bickering, Marissa can't deny that Ryan has a knack for inspiring people. Over the following days, as they work together to organize the fundraiser, she begins to see glimpses of the man behind the easygoing facade. He's fiercely protective of Blue Haven, dedicated to teaching kids how to surf, and deeply in tune with the rhythms of the ocean. Ryan, in turn, learns that Marissa's passion for her work stems from a profound love for marine life, rooted in childhood summers spent watching dolphins off the Florida coast. Still, their differences threaten to unravel their progress. When Marissa learns that Ryan plans to use his savings to rent equipment for the event, she confronts him. "That's reckless," she says. "You shouldn't have to sacrifice for this." Ryan shrugs. "Someone has to. And besides, what's the point of money if you can't use it to do something good?" His words unsettle her, challenging her belief that everything must be planned and accounted for. It's a question she doesn't have an answer to. The tension between them reaches a boiling point during a late-night planning session on the beach. The moonlight casts a silvery glow over the sand as they argue over the budget. Frustrated, Ryan throws up his hands. "Why does everything have to be perfect with you?" he demands. "Because if it's not, everything falls apart." Marissa snaps, her voice breaking. She doesn't mean to reveal so much, but the words tumble out before she can stop them. Ryan steps closer, his expression softening. "Not everything," he says quietly. "Some things hold, even when you don't expect them to." For a moment, the world around them fades. The roar of the waves, the cool breeze. They're aware only of each other. It's a fragile, fleeting connection, but it's enough to make Marissa wonder if maybe, just maybe, she's found something worth holding on to. Marissa and Ryan's lives start weaving together like the tides that shape Blue Haven's shores. Despite their initial clashes, the need to organize the fundraiser forces them to spend more time together. The tension between them, half frustration, half curiosity, creates an undeniable electricity. Early stages of connection. The first time Marissa allows herself to laugh in Ryan's presence, it catches them both off guard. It happens during one of their early morning planning meetings at the Driftwood pub. Marissa is poring over spreadsheets, muttering under her breath about ballooning costs, when Ryan strides in, carrying a tray of mismatched muffins. "You're late," Marissa snaps, not looking up. Ryan sets the tray down in front of her and grins. "And yet, I brought breakfast. A fair trade, don't you think?" Her eyes flick to the muffins. One blueberry, one chocolate chip, and one that appears to be slathered in an alarming amount of frosting. "Is that carrot cake?" she asks, incredulous. Ryan shrugs. "They were on sale." Marissa tries to keep her face neutral, but a snort of laughter escapes. It's quick, almost imperceptible, but Ryan notices. His grin widens. "There it is," he teases. "I knew you had a sense of humor somewhere under all that serious marine biology." "Don't push your luck," she warns, though her tone is softer than usual. Moments like this become more frequent as the fundraiser planning progresses. Marissa starts to see that Ryan's humor isn't just a defense mechanism. It's a way of keeping people, and himself, grounded. Meanwhile, Ryan begins to respect Marissa's determination, even if he doesn't always understand her need for control. Shared moments. The night of the lanterns. One evening, Ryan insists they take a break from planning to experience the Real Blue Haven. Marissa reluctantly agrees, thinking it'll be some surf-related excursion. Instead, he leads her to the town square, where locals are setting up for the Lantern Walk, a Blue Haven tradition. "You've never been to one of these?" Ryan asks as he hands her a paper lantern and a marker. "I just moved here," she reminds him. "What am I supposed to do with this?" "Write a wish," he says simply. "Or something you want to let go of." Marissa hesitates, then scribbles a few words onto the lantern. She doesn't show Ryan, but the act feels strangely cathartic. They join the crowd as the lanterns are lit and released into the night sky. Marissa watches her own lantern drift upward, carried by the soft breeze. For the first time in years, she feels a flicker of hope. Ryan watches her from the corner of his eye. "You look different," he says. Marissa glances at him. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," he replies, his voice thoughtful. "Like you're finally here." It's a cryptic comment, but it lingers with Marissa long after the lanterns disappear into the darkness. Supporting characters and influence. Chloe, Ryan's best friend, becomes an unexpected ally. She and Marissa strike up a tentative friendship during one of the beach cleanup efforts. Chloe's quick wit and no-nonsense attitude make her easy to talk to, and Marissa finds herself opening up about her struggles. So, Chloe says one afternoon as they sort through piles of seaweed and trash, "What's the deal with you and Ryan?" Marissa nearly drops the bottle she's holding. "There's no deal. We're working together. That's all." Chloe raises an eyebrow. "Aha, sure. And I'm the Queen of England." Marissa rolls her eyes, but Chloe's words stick with her. She's not sure what she feels for Ryan, but she can't deny that he's gotten under her skin. Dr. Bennett, Marissa's mentor, provides a different kind of perspective. Over coffee one morning, he gently nudges her to consider her own happiness. "You're doing great work, Marissa," he says, "but don't forget to live a little. The ocean teaches us that balance is everything." Marissa doesn't reply, but his words echo in her mind as she spends more time with Ryan. Challenges arise. The storm and misunderstandings. The first major rift between Marissa and Ryan happens after a powerful storm hits Blue Haven. The winds tear through the coastline, leaving destruction in their wake. Marissa spends the entire day assessing the damage to the marine reserve, exhausted and overwhelmed. Ryan shows up at her research station late that evening, bringing coffee and a bag of warm pastries. She's too tired to argue as he sits beside her, silently offering his support. For a moment, she feels grateful. Then he casually mentions that he's considering hosting a surfing competition as part of the fundraiser. Marissa's exhaustion turns into frustration. "Are you serious?" she snaps. "We're trying to clean up the mess this storm made, and you want to hold a competition?" Ryan stiffens. "It's not just about surfing. It's about bringing people together." Marissa shakes her head. "You don't get it. This isn't a game, Ryan. This is my life's work. And you think I don't care about this town?" He fires back, his voice rising. "I've lived here my whole life, Marissa. I care just as much as you do, but I also know that people need hope, something to look forward to." Their argument ends with Marissa storming out, leaving Ryan standing alone in the dim light of the station. Symbolic moments. The cove and the sunrise a few days later, Marissa decides to make amends. She invites Ryan to the secluded cove where the harbor seals gather, a place she hasn't shown anyone else. It's early morning, the first rays of sunlight casting a golden glow over the water. As they watch the seals play, Marissa explains why her work means so much to her. She tells him about her childhood summers, how her mother would take her to the beach and teach her about the importance of protecting the ocean. Ryan listens quietly, his usual humor replaced by a rare seriousness. When she finishes, he reaches out and squeezes her hand. "I get it," he says softly, "and I'm sorry for pushing you so hard. I wanted to help." Marissa looks at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. "You did," she admits, "even if I didn't realize it at first." It's a turning point for both of them, a moment of understanding that deepens their connection. A night to remember. The fundraiser approaches. As the fundraiser draws closer, the tension between them eases, replaced by a growing camaraderie. They work late into the nights, finalizing plans and troubleshooting last-minute issues. The beach is transformed into a magical setting, with string lights, driftwood decorations, and an outdoor stage for live music. On the eve of the event, Ryan surprises Marissa by taking her out on a small boat to watch the bioluminescence in the water. As the waves glow with eerie blue light, Marissa feels a sense of wonder she hasn't experienced in years. "You're not so bad at this romance thing," she teases, her voice light. Ryan grins. "Don't let it go to your head." As they sit side by side, their shoulders brushing, Marissa realizes she's no longer afraid of what might come next. For the first time, she feels ready to take a chance. The night of the fundraiser arrives with the kind of charged energy that makes the air feel alive. The beach is a glowing paradise, illuminated by the soft golden hues of string lights swaying in the breeze. Tables lined with shells and sea glass stand beneath the canopy, each adorned with donation jars, while the scent of salty air mingles with the warmth of freshly grilled seafood. Marissa stands near the entrance, her clipboard clutched tightly in her hands. She should feel relief. Weeks of hard work have led to this moment. But instead, her stomach churns. Something feels off, though she can't quite place what it is. She glances toward the water, where Ryan is helping the band set up near the stage. Even from a distance, his easy smile and confident movements make her heart skip. She's about to head over when a voice she hasn't heard in months stops her in her tracks. Marissa. She turns sharply, her heart plummeting as she meets the familiar gaze of Andrew, her ex-fiancé. Dressed impeccably as always, Andrew looks out of place on the beach, his polished shoes sinking slightly into the sand. His presence feels like a ghost emerging from the past she's worked so hard to leave behind. Andrew, she says, her voice stiff. What are you doing here? I heard about the fundraiser, he says, smiling in a way that once disarmed her but now feels rehearsed. I thought I'd come and support you. I know how much this means to you. Marissa stiffens, glancing over her shoulder toward Ryan. He's still preoccupied, unaware of the conversation unfolding just a few yards away. I didn't invite you, she says bluntly. You shouldn't have come. Andrew's smile falters. I've missed you, Marissa. I've been thinking about us, about everything that happened. I made a mistake, leaving the way I did. Her chest tightens with anger and disbelief. A mistake? She repeats, her voice low but sharp. You called off our engagement 2 weeks before the wedding because you needed to focus on your career. And now you think you can just show up like nothing happened. I was scared. He admits, his voice dropping. But I've changed. I want to make things right. Before Marissa can respond, Ryan's voice cuts through the tension like a blade. Everything okay here? She turns to see Ryan standing a few feet away, his expression carefully neutral but his eyes sharp as they flick between her and Andrew. His presence feels like a lifeline, steady and grounding. Andrew straightens, clearly assessing Ryan. I don't think we've met. Andrew Morris, he says, extending a hand. Ryan hesitates, then shakes it briefly. Ryan Callahan. Ah, Andrew says, his smile tight. The local surfer. Ryan's jaw tightens, but he doesn't rise to the bait. Instead, he looks at Marissa. You need anything? I'm fine, she says quickly, though her voice wavers. She glances at Andrew. We were just finishing up. Andrew opens his mouth to argue, but the look on Marissa's face stops him. After a long pause, he nods. I'll be around if you want to talk, he says, turning and disappearing into the crowd. As soon as he's gone, Ryan steps closer. What was that about? Nothing, Marissa says, though the words sound hollow. He shouldn't have come. Ryan studies her face, his expression softening. You don't have to explain anything to me, but... You okay? She nods, forcing a smile. I'm fine. Let's just focus on tonight. But the night only grows more complicated. The breaking point later, as the event reaches its peak, Andrew finds his way to the microphone during a lull in the evening. Ryan, Marissa, and the rest of the team watch in stunned silence as Andrew takes the stage, smiling out at the crowd. I want to thank you all for coming tonight, he begins smoothly. This is an incredible cause, and Marissa has done amazing work to bring it to life. Marissa's stomach twists as heads turn to look at her. She feels Ryan's gaze on her, but she can't bring herself to meet his eyes. And since we're all here to celebrate connections, both with nature and with each other, Andrew continues, his tone shifting to something far more personal. I'd like to take this moment to say something I should have said a long time ago. He looks directly at Marissa. I'm sorry for what I did, and I hope you can forgive me. You've always been the most important person in my life. The crowd murmurs in confusion and curiosity, their attention split between Andrew and Marissa. Her mind races, torn between anger and humiliation. Ryan's voice breaks through the fog. What the hell is this? He mutters under his breath, his fists clenched at his sides. Before she can stop him, Ryan strides toward the stage. The room seems to hold its breath as he steps up beside Andrew, his expression a mix of frustration and disbelief. Okay, Ryan says, his voice cutting through the tension like a wave breaking against the shore. I think that's enough of your personal redemption arc. This night isn't about you. Andrew's jaw tightens. I'm trying to apologize. And I'm trying to keep this night focused on saving the Marine Reserve, not on whatever mess you're trying to clean up, Ryan retorts. He gestures toward the crowd. If you want to make a donation, great. Otherwise, maybe step aside and let Marissa have her moment. Andrew glares at him but doesn't reply. After a long pause, he steps down, and Ryan follows, leaving the crowd buzzing. The fallout, the confrontation leaves Marissa reeling. She finds Ryan near the water's edge, his expression stormy as he stares out at the waves. What were you thinking? She demands, her voice trembling. You didn't need to do that. He was making a spectacle out of you. Ryan says, his voice tight. I couldn't just stand there. That wasn't your call to make. Marissa snaps. I didn't ask you to fight my battles. Ryan turns to face her, his frustration evident. You're right, you didn't. But maybe if you'd told me what was going on, I wouldn't have had to guess. Marissa's heart pounds. This isn't about him, she says, though she can hear the doubt in her own voice. It's about you not trusting me to handle things. Ryan laughs bitterly, running a hand through his hair. This isn't about trust, Marissa. It's about the fact that you're so used to shutting people out, you don't even see when someone's trying to help you. The words hit harder than she expects, leaving her stunned. Ryan shakes his head and steps back. Look, I care about you more than I know how to say. He admits, his voice softer now. But I can't keep fighting for someone who won't let me in. He walks away before she can respond, leaving her standing alone on the beach, the sound of waves crashing in her ears. A moment of clarity as the night winds down. Marissa sits on the edge of the stage, staring out at the water. The weight of Ryan's words presses down on her, forcing her to confront the truth she's been avoiding. She's spent so much time building walls to protect herself, she's forgotten how to let anyone close. Chloe finds her there, handing her a cup of coffee. Rough night? She asks, her tone laced with understanding. Marissa nods. I think I messed everything up. Ryan's stubborn, Chloe says, but he's also the most loyal guy I know. If he walked away, it's because he's hurting. Doesn't mean he's gone for good. Marissa looks up, hope flickering in her chest. You think? Chloe shrugs. Only one way to find out. Marissa takes a deep breath, the weight in her chest beginning to lift. For the first time, she feels ready to fight. Not just for her work, but for the love she's been too afraid to claim. The fundraiser's success becomes a muted victory for Marissa. Despite raising enough funds to restore the Marine Reserve, her heart feels heavy. Ryan's words replay in her mind as she walks along the now empty beach the next morning, the remnants of the event scattered like echoes of the night before. The sand still holds the faint impressions of the crowd, but the weight in her chest is hers alone. Chloe's encouragement lingers, though. If Ryan walked away because he was hurting, it means he cared deeply enough to risk being vulnerable with her. That thought alone stirs something in Marissa, a sense of urgency, of clarity she's never felt before. For the first time, she realizes that loving someone isn't about perfect timing or being entirely ready. It's about being willing to leap, even when you're scared. Marissa makes a choice. Marissa decides to find Ryan. She knows where he'll be, the place he always retreats to when life feels too overwhelming, the point where the cliffs meet the sea. She'd heard Chloe mention it once, calling it his thinking spot. She climbs the steep, uneven path, the salty wind whipping around her, carrying the cries of distant seagulls. When she finally reaches the top, she sees him sitting on the edge, legs dangling over the rocks, his surfboard propped up nearby. The sight of him is both familiar and jarring, as if seeing him in this moment peels back every barrier she's ever built around her heart. Ryan, she says softly. He turns, surprise flickering across his face before it's replaced by something more guarded. Marissa, what are you doing here? She hesitates for a moment, the words catching in her throat. But then she steps closer, determined. I came to say I'm sorry. and to tell you that I was wrong." Ryan looks at her, his expression unreadable. "About what?" "About everything," she admits, her voice trembling. "About thinking I had to do it all alone. About shutting you out when all you were trying to do was help me. I've spent so much of my life being afraid, of failing, of getting hurt, that I forgot how to let someone in." He doesn't respond immediately, and the silence stretches between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Finally, he stands, his eyes searching hers. "Why now?" he asks. "What's changed?" She swallows hard, her heart pounding. "Because I realized something last night. You were right. I've been so focused on protecting myself that I didn't see what I was risking by pushing you away. And I don't want to lose you, Ryan. Not because I was too scared to try." His face softens, and for a moment, she sees the vulnerability beneath his usual bravado. "Do you mean that?" he asks, his voice quieter now. Marissa nods, stepping closer. "I mean it. I don't know what the future looks like, and I can't promise I won't make mistakes, but I want to figure it out with you, if you'll let me." Ryan exhales slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing. "You're not the only one who's scared, you know," he admits. "I've spent my whole life running from anything that felt too big, too real. But you make me want to stay." Marissa's eyes fill with tears, but she smiles. "Then stay. Let's figure it out together." Ryan steps forward, closing the distance between them. When he cups her face in his hands, the world seems to pause. The kiss they share is tender and filled with unspoken promises. A moment that feels like the beginning of something new. The rebirth of connection in the weeks that follow, Marissa and Ryan rebuild their bond. Not as two people navigating opposing paths, but as partners learning to walk together. They spend mornings surfing side by side, afternoons working on the marine reserve, and evenings sharing quiet moments on the beach. The rhythm of their lives begins to sync, like the tide rising and falling in harmony. Marissa learns to embrace the unpredictability of Ryan's world, finding joy in the spontaneity she once resisted. In return, Ryan grows to appreciate Marissa's need for structure, even adopting some of her meticulous planning when it comes to running his surf shack. They teach each other balance, a lesson neither of them expected to learn, but one that transforms their relationship. Chloe, ever the observant friend, teases them mercilessly but is genuinely thrilled to see them happy. Dr. Bennett, too, notices a change in Marissa during one of their weekly check-ins. "You seem lighter," he observes one afternoon. "Like you've finally found your footing." Marissa smiles. "Maybe I have." A symbol of their loved one, particularly clear morning, Ryan surprises Marissa by taking her to a hidden cove he discovered as a teenager. The water is crystal clear, the sand untouched, and the air filled with the gentle hum of nature. In the center of the cove stands a lone tree, its roots twisted and strong, defying the odds of its harsh environment. "This is where I come when I need to remember what matters," Ryan says, taking her hand. "I wanted to share it with you." Marissa feels a lump in her throat as she looks around, her heart swelling with gratitude. "It's beautiful," she whispers. Ryan pulls a small seashell from his pocket, its surface smooth and iridescent. "I found this here years ago," he says, placing it in her hand. "It reminded me that even in the roughest places, something beautiful can grow." Marissa holds the shell tightly, tears pricking her eyes. She knows then that their love, imperfect, messy, and hard-won, is something worth fighting for. It's a love forged through storms and misunderstandings, but also through laughter and shared dreams. Years later, Marissa and Ryan stand on the same beach where their story began, their hands intertwined as the waves lap at their feet. The Marine Reserve thrives, a testament to Marissa's dedication and the town's support. Ryan's surf shack has expanded, now a hub for teaching kids about the ocean and its wonders. As they watch the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Marissa leans her head against Ryan's shoulder. "Do you ever think about that first night?" she asks softly. "When we met?" Ryan chuckles. "You mean when you nearly drowned me with your kayak?" "Yeah, I think about it. She laughs, her heart light. I never would have guessed we'd end up here. That's the thing about life, Ryan says, his voice thoughtful. It doesn't always go the way you plan, but sometimes it takes you exactly where you're meant to be. Marissa squeezes his hand, her chest swelling with a deep sense of peace. Their journey hasn't been easy, but it's been worth every step. Together, they've learned that love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up